By the way, hi Trav.
Hi.
Hi, Travi. I'm glad to see you here and no
so many
longer having
names.
issues.
I am so excited to have America's radio sweetheart Jesse Thorne on our podcast this week.
Who?
Oh,
Wait, what?
So I've been listening to a lot of podcasts on the Maximum Fun Network, and the guy who runs it is a dude named Jesse Thorne, who does this podcast called radio NPR show called Bullseye, but he also runs a whole network of podcasts, and he happens to look more than a little like Travi. Oh, did my sound go up?
No.
No,
Okay,
we can hear you.
We're sitting there
just processing the Trav doppelganger.
we're processing the cut. It went a little bit deep. Deep. Also, we're running late, so kick us off.
Hi, I'm Jack.
I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Lauren.
And we are Glib Sharks. So excited. Hey, remember when this
No,
podcast...
you get like an introduction. You wait.
Yeah. Do you remember when this broadcast used to interview people who were doing new and exciting and cool stuff on the internet? We get one of those this week. And we're going to introduce him in just a bit. But first, as always, or at least as often as we can, we have, to our fortune, the lovely, the talented, the amazing Oboe Crazy, here to do a little something that we call This Week in Geek. Hey, Lauren, how are you?
I am still recovering from being sick last week, and I have to tell you, this basically happens to me once a year. I get a really bad cold, and it all just ends up in my nose. And the worst thing ever of all time for a woodwind player is to not be able to breathe. I hate it. And I can only take Afrin for 3 days. And I'm on day 5, and where I'm shoving every other thing up my nose I can to make it not be all blocked up. So if I sound a little sick, it's because I still am. So I'm only going to talk about one thing for This Week in Geek, but it's like 5 or 7 or 12 things all rolled into one, because Disney basically announced all their geek movies for the next 5 years. So hey, kids, pull out your calendars. It's time to mark some dates. So the big one is probably Star Wars Episode 9. We knew it was coming out in 2019. Everyone was assuming Christmas because the previous 2 films are Christmas. Turns out, nope, that's actually going to be coming out Memorial Day weekend, May 24th, 2019. That's right. Mark your calendar. That actually puts it just 1 year after the release of the Han Solo standalone film, which is happening in 2018. It's also the first episode of the new saga to be released during the summer, which is when the first 6 films were actually released as big summer blockbusters. Speaking of other Lucasfilms properties, the 5th Indiana Jones film, Please Be Good, Please Be Good, Please Be Good, was originally scheduled for 2019. That's been bumped. It is now planned to open on July 10th, 2020. Both Steven Spielberg and Harrison Ford have confirmed they will be back for it, at least for now. And then a whole bunch of other things. So, Ralph Breaks the Internet, which is Wreck-It Ralph 2, has been delayed to March of 2018, from March of 2018 to November 21st. Frozen 2, Electric Boogaloo, I guess Frozen Boogaloo, whatever, it will be released November 27th, 2019. The live-action Lion King musical that is directed by Jon Favreau will now be out July 19th, 2019. And Disney's Animation's Gigantic has been moved back 2 years, from November 2018 to November 25th, 2020. There you go. If you wanted to know when you needed to be in the movie theaters in the next couple of years for Disney stuff, I mean, obviously a lot of this is subject to change, but I have a feeling some of this is now locked. Once they start giving actual dates and not years and be like, hey, it's coming out in 2019 or 2018 or 2020. Once they start going May 24th, 2019, that's, as Eddie Izzard would say, they've planted a flag, and everybody else starts jockeying for positions around it, especially when you've got these big marquee things like Star Wars. I mean, nobody in their right mind is going to want to compete against the Star Wars movie, except maybe some God, I can't. You know what? I was just gonna say some like counter programming movie, but at this point, Star Wars. What is counter programming to Star Wars? There really isn't anything.
Rom-coms.
You know what? I would even disagree with rom-coms because if the idea of a romantic comedy is it's supposed to be appealing to women who just want to watch, a love affair or a get together kind of movie and it's all cutesy and stuff. First off, more women are going to see Star Wars than men recently. Second off, have you seen the way Finn and Poe were looking at each other in that last movie? It is a rom-com. Thank you very much. So,
well, we're assuming that Finn regains consciousness at some point.
Yeah, probably, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I hope so because Finn and Poe are my favorite couple in Star Wars. Yeah. Anyway, as I said, once you start getting specific dates, it gets a little harder to move. So I think it's unless something goes catastrophically wrong, or unless some of the Marvel movies start getting announced in weird spaces, I think those dates are pretty well set in stone. So mark your calendars. Make sure you're healthy and happy and hale and going to make it all the way to 2020 so that you can be here for things like Frozen 2. Yay! That's all for this week in Geek. I'm Mobo Crazy. I'm gonna be healthy by the time Memorial Day weekend, May 24th, 2019 comes along because I'm going to see Star Wars no matter what.
The world is indeed a strange place. If you have a fact you want read live and on the air, say about our favorite romantic comedy series, Star Wars, you can send it to Lauren at obocrazy.com, and she'll do us all a solid and read it for everyone so that everyone can hear about it. And while you're at it, go to glibshark.com. So the reason I'm sending you there is because you can get episodes of the original Late Night Jenga Jam, the classic Buttcast, which had the rise of internet luminaries like Barbara Dunkelman and Mary McDowell, and of course Dungeons and Dragons and Drunks, which is the new hotness where I get to play a Apple-obsessed maniac who has a bow and arrow. And of course Glibshark with episodes like this one right now with someone I have known for a very, very long time. So he goes by many names. But
don't we all?
Marble Baby. He has a synth blog, Watermelon Banzai. He goes by Jarvis or Trav or Travi, or he was Johnny Bravo in the Cartoon Network series of the same name. I'm pretty sure you went by Johnny Mundo in your time with Lucha Underground. That sounds about right.
I was just about to say, I would probably give you like $1 per internet handle that you can remember that I've used.
Oh man, good thing I made a list. Okay, I got Porklord 666. We got Creative Josh. We got Travi, Tarvis, Jarvis, Marvis, Clarvis.
I don't know.
The last three are fabricated, of course. But how are you, bud?
It's no list of Jericho, but the list of Edithil will work just as well, I suppose.
Yay! So, 2 reasons I'm excited to have you on. 1, because it's you and you're awesome.
Oh,
and
thanks.
2, because the whole premise behind this show was that we were to talk to people who are doing really cool stuff on the internet. We had a lot of people like that. And the last couple of months or years have been pretty cool, and I get to just shoot the breeze with people. But I get to do that and talk to you about something you're doing that's really cool in Watermelon Banzai.
I mean, for those of you who are just tuning in and who've never listened to Glibshark before,
oh my God, what are you doing here?
Exactly. I do join such luminaries that you've interviewed, such as, the people behind Homestar Runner and Rooster Teeth and such. So, and to be brought on the show to talk about my creative endeavors against such luminaries, I certainly appreciate that.
Well, I mean, you deserve it. So, really interesting thing. I was actually randomly, before I even knew you were running a synth blog, I was thinking of the theme to the TV show Moonlight City, or Moonlight, the one on Cartoon Network that had the sort of 80s theme. And
I never actually watched it. I feel kind of bad saying that, but I remember seeing commercials for it, and I was just like, oh, that looks like something I would like. That's as the kids say these days. That's my aesthetic.
Yeah.
And but I don't really watch TV, so I never really got around to it.
Right, but of course the reason I'm bringing it up is because it has this kind of synth-heavy like theme song and soundtrack, and definitely an '80s aesthetic and vibe, which of course engendered the synthwave no love. So I guess it shouldn't be that surprising to me that you fell into this movement, seeing as how you are sort of both an adopted and a natural child of the '80s.
Yeah, I mean, I was born in '86, so I mean, halfway there, living on a prayer. And, you know, by the time I was old enough to have memories, like, not to get into a philosophical discussion or anything, to totally veer off course, but this is a question that I've sometimes asked people, and if you'll indulge me for just a moment to derail the conversation just a moment.
We're derailing the conversation that we're having about you and your things so that you can derail it to talk about some other things. But you're the ones derailing it. So, okay.
Don't worry, I'll bring it back around somehow. Let me ask you something, Jack. What is the very first memory that you can remember?
1986, Walt Disney World in Orlando, Florida. We're going to go on a submarine ride. And I remember being really excited to see all the different aquatic animals down there and remember how long that drive was from Philly. But we had driven like over through the night. So I've been wired and obsessed. And I was so excited. 5 minutes in, I fall asleep. I wake up, the whole thing's over.
That's a shame.
Yeah, it kind of went dark there.
Well, not dark, just like kind of sad.
Yeah, that my first memory is disappointment. I mean, it's all been pretty good since then, in my defense.
Yeah. But the point I'm trying to make is that, like, the very first memory that I probably have is like the very early 90s. So, like, even though I was born in '86, I don't really have many memories until like the early '90s and such. So it is kind of weird in a way that I get very nostalgic and emotional when it comes to like '80s stuff, like movies and TV shows and music and all that. But you know, decades tend to bleed over into each other. So when you get into the early 90s and such, from my early memories, you're still getting the reruns and the music on the radio and everything. So, I mean, I think that's part of it, is that it was still somewhat part of growing up for me.
Well, to paraphrase Bane, you think the '80s were your ally? You merely adopted the '80s. I was born in it, molded by it. I didn't see the 21st century until I was already a man. By then, it was nothing to me but blight. Oh, it's terrible. Worst Bane ever. My God.
Yeah, you should have stopped like a line ago.
Yeah.
It went on one too many lines, Jack.
Fine. Gosh, quality control over here. Flapping his
The
gums.
problem with Bane on an audio podcast is, like, he was hard to understand in video form.
Right.
Yeah.
And Bane by design is just difficult to understand. So even a good Bane is just bad.
Yeah, so it's a good bit gone wrong. Or maybe not even a good bit.
No,
Do you
not
remember the original trailer for The Dark Knight Rises?
Where he was unintelligible?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like what we got in the final product was much better than what was in the original trailer.
Yeah, I'm so glad they replaced Peter Dinklage as the voice of Bane. That was a good move. I mean, good actor. Don't get me wrong. I loved him in The Station Agent, but I don't think Bane was right for him.
Mm.
But I get what you're saying about like the whole like adopting like the '80s or what have you. Like I listened to like hard rock '70s music in like when I was in high school in the late '90s, even though I was born years after like Led Zeppelin's like zenith, if you will.
Well, it probably also helped growing up that my sister is like 13 years older than me.
Right.
So she was born in '73. So when she would babysit me and hang out and such, you know, sort of leech off of what she would listen to and what she would watch and everything. Sure. And my dad was also big into classic rock, and like it's funny. I think back to it now. Like growing up, he had like a massive collection of like VHS tapes of like '80s action films. So like here I am, 5 years old, And for whatever reason, my parents have no problem with me watching violent action movies of the 80s.
I
Like, you know,
totally get you there. When I was a bit older than that, because like I'm thinking like 87, or not 87, like 85, 86 was when things like Aliens and RoboCop and like Lethal Weapon, all of those were coming out, and it was like, yeah, I was just watching with my dad.
yeah.
Like I remember vivid memories of watching RoboCop, and like you said, it was on tape. It was like we just had RoboCop on tape. We watched any time. We could see that poor Omni exec just get absolutely railed by Ed 209 every as often as we wanted.
Yeah, and my dad was a little bit of a cheapskate, although he did own a VCR and everything. But he would record movies off of HBO back then.
Nope. Yeah.
So
my dad would do the same thing. Yeah.
yep. So
That free HBO or Showtime weekend was a gold mine.
exactly.
Not only that, but VCRs back in the day cost like $2,000, so you might as well get your money's worth.
That too. So like I said, he just had a massive collection of like all these movies that he recorded off of HBO, and you know, it's just funny. I look back now at like, you know, yeah, we had RoboCop, we had, you know, Commando, we had Terminator, like, and I watched these at like 5 years old, and my parents were okay with it. I mean, I turned out okay.
We all turned out okay.
I didn't. No.
By which I mean TV.
Yes.
I turned out TV.
But I think that also helped me to sort of have an appreciation for the movies that came out in that era and the music, because that's what synthwave to me sort of is. It's tapping into the music of the time, but not only that, but sort of like the soundtracks to a lot of movies at the time. Like, you know, I think of some of the greats like John Carpenter, the synths that he would use in his productions, just it's amazing. And you know, it's kind of like vinyl in a way. You know, it's made a resurgence. You know, synth work was a big thing in the late 70s, 80s, but then it kind of died out like a lot of things. And now, you know, the big thing about the synthwave genre is that it's all about retro stuff. So you've got all these acts who put out their stuff not only digitally, but also on cassette tape, vinyl, which if you follow me at all on social media, you know I buy a shit ton of it. And actually, to bring this around full circle a little bit, the band who did the theme song for the show you were talking about earlier, they're actually going to be at this 2-day synthwave musical fest in New Jersey, Memorial Day weekend, that I'm actually going to.
Oh wow!
They're one of the acts. There's like at least a dozen acts that are going to be playing that weekend.
Everywhere in New Jersey is relatively close by.
It's Newark.
Oh well, it's still not too bad. I think I'm setting up stuff for baby. So,
right.
But I mean, it's so cool. Like that you'd be like right around the corner. I mean, enjoying this really cool like synth thing. And the neat thing about it is, it's sort of, I think the resurgence is kind of fueled by the fact that the people who grew up with it are now in their 30s and 40s. So they're the ones who are out there creating stuff and doing stuff. So there's a ready built-in market for it. And I was sort of reading the entries on Watermelon Banzai, and I love that you have actual links to the band camps and stuff there. So it's one thing to talk about it, but it's another thing to actually be able to listen to it. So I had a good like hour to sort of like listen to this stuff, and like it's you think it's just one kind of sound. It's all kinds of different like subgenres too. You have that dark stuff you were talking about, but then there's like lighter stuff, poppy stuff. So it's like it's almost like it's not a genre, it's a medium.
Yeah, I mean, there are, and I don't usually like to get too deep into subgenres because everyone kind of likes to put themselves in boxes and labels. I mean, yeah, you do have the upper echelon, the synthwave in general, or some people call it outrun or retro wave, or and then subgenres like dark wave, which is much more heavier. Um, I just like all of it, and it as you said, it's the music is the most important thing. I mean, obviously, but what I mean by that is, it's one thing to write up a review and put it on a website. It does you no good if you don't have the music there. So not only do I link to each act that I review, an album that I review, but I do find it important to link to the actual music. And I kind of hope that like people would listen to the songs as they're reading my review so they can sort of follow along with what I'm trying to say. And I didn't get I wasn't even originally going to do the blog and the website and everything, but I have to say the whole synthwave community is just so passionate, and they're so like helpful and supportive of each other, and it's become like this like I've made so many like it's the 25th of April. I literally started this blog on the 1st of April after I mentioned that I love to write, and I always I've had so many I'll just say it. I've had a lot of failed creative projects over the years, and I never really had something I could sink my teeth into. So after so many people started encouraging me, saying, "Oh, you should, start up this blog. You should write. You should do this," and I was just like, you know what? Sure, I'll give it a shot. And like I said, it's only been up for 25 days. I've had a bunch of posts. I've had like people come out of the woodwork, like, following me on Twitter and Facebook and being like, "Hey, we want to like check out my stuff," and like suddenly I'm getting bombarded with like requests like, "Hey, check out my stuff. Hey, you want to review my stuff? You want to do an interview?" And it's like it's honestly it's gotten it's overwhelmed me just a little bit, which is kind of hard. Which is kind of hard because I'm also dealing with school and work, but at the same time, it's again, it's amazing. It's like it's Jack, more than anyone how many creative projects I've had in the 17 years you've known me.
More than a few.
Yeah, and again, I can honestly say that this is the most fun and the most like the most I don't know if worthwhile is the best word, but it's like it's the one that I finally feel like I've got like it feels like I'm a part of something. Does that make sense? Like
So, I get it, and while I'm very happy for you, that I'm a very petty person and a jealous person. So
Yes.
I'm going to shave my beard and burn my jacket in protest of your success. But I get it, like, because when I saw everyone retweeting and subtweeting your tweets about it, and, like all these new people that I'd never even heard of, it was obvious that you tapped into this really cool kind of community where they are supportive. And I like that your reviews sort of go into mainly what you enjoy about it and describe what it's like. I remember years and years ago, like you posted something, I don't think it was DigiPlace or Rooster Teeth, I think it was like Traviak gives the critics 2 thumbs down. Because I think anybody can say what they don't like about something. It's another person for them to, another thing for you to be able to be sort of positive in what you hear and what you like, and then let other people determine for themselves whether they agree with you or not. And I think that's, in a way, more useful for something like this.
Well, that was my main goal with starting this, was that there was so much positivity in this community, and I felt like my job with this site, and there's other people who do synthwave blogs and reviews. My biggest supporter and someone I look up to runs Echo Synthetic, and he churns out things at a really fast rate, like really good stuff. And I wish I could do that, but again, I'm so busy. So I kind of look at myself as like the turtle. Like might take me a little bit longer to pump out a review or so, but I like to think that it's still top quality, and but it's all about the positivity for me. These people who are putting out this music are like me. They got full-time jobs, they got families, they got school, they do this part-time, and they need all the help they can get to be noticed.
Sure.
So if I can write up a positive review and I don't just do it to just give lip service. I'm not just handing out positive reviews just to do it. It's like,
yeah, you're not positive reviews Santa.
No, I legitimately sit down, I listen to their music, and in some cases, like if it's like because I still drive a 2001 Chevy Malibu with a tape deck and nothing else. Like I said, some of them release cassette tapes, so I will pop in their cassette and I will just listen to it as I'm driving around, and it allows me to really get a feel for the music. And like I said, I take my time to write the review, and I don't know, it just means a lot to me to be able to put so much into the review that way.
And unfortunately, we just lost Jenga. I'm sure he's coming back. He was probably
he just mentioned his computer just powered down.
Computer!
Jenga, I would like to remind you on air at this moment, please plug your computer in. It happens to us all. But so you were talking about reviews, and I think it highlighted something that I think is integral to reviews, at least for me, because I don't tend to read reviews of movies, for example, or TV shows, but let's take movies. I don't tend to read reviews of movies to see whether it's a movie I want to go see.
Right.
I tend to, I'll watch a trailer, I'll hear if it's something I'm not going to go see right away. I might listen to some friends give me the yes or no if it's good or not. I like reading reviews and hearing critical opinion because I like hearing what people who probably have more education about the craft of filmmaking have to say about a thing. So a lot of the time, I'm either reading a review of a movie I've already seen, or or listening to a review, or however, because I respect the person that is giving the review and I enjoy their presentation. And usually it's I'm going to get educated about something in the process, or they're just entertaining as hell. So I think, for you to have that same kind of philosophy of like, it not necessarily, yay, 2 thumbs up, or, whatever. Here's what I think, here's some critical analysis, here's some more in-depth stuff. I think that's a good place to go with reviews, because nowadays people don't really need anyone to say, yes, go see it, or no, don't, because I think the critical community for any project understands, hey, I may think this is the best thing ever of all time, but your mileage may vary, and this may be an excellent thing, but it may not be your thing. So I think to have that kind of review that's detailing, here's why I think about what I think about. Here is things to think about. I think that's how you turn it from just how many stars out of 5 to here's critique.
It's funny. I've really grown to hate rating systems.
Oh yeah.
Like you said, like 4 out of 5 stars or 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
Numbers and stars and smiley faces, thumbs up don't tell me anything. It's the words, it's the feeling. Like you said, it's like when I tackle a review, first, like I said, I immerse myself in the thing I'm going to review, and then I sort of I like to because I consider myself a writer first, and maybe that sounds very pretentious and such, but like
Oh
I
my
try.
God, where's your fedora, dude?
Oh, how dare you actually want to
I
craft
know.
words?
Passion is
Oh.
so boring. Oh my God.
Like, if you can't say it in 140 characters, then it's not worth my time. Lead
Oh.
speaker, nothing, JK. LOLO. Sorry. Oh.
But yeah, I mean, I try to sort of tell a story in each review that basically just sort of gives my complete thought process. Like it's not so much me saying like, um, you know, here's what I think. Now go listen to this thing.
And
It's like,
And yeah, 'cause frankly, that's something I struggled with when I was reviewing games for Wandering Gamer or movies for Midnight Movie Review. It was like, I tend, especially with Wandering Gamer, because I tend to only play board games that I like. So it became hard to try and differentiate all the good reviews. Like, okay, this game is good. What makes it good? And I tried to kind of encapsulate that, but it was like you said, it's hard. It's like because just saying like sort of like the rating system, just and other stuff, just saying everything's good. Okay, that doesn't tell me much.
right. And it's like I've been, and there's so many acts out there in the synthwave community, and there's like so many different styles and genres and everything where like I've definitely found myself going outside of, I guess you would just call it a comfort zone, and it's like I'm literally discovering a new act like every day, either on my own time, or like I said, I've been getting requests from people just following me on Twitter and DMing me out of the blue, being like, "Hey, check out my stuff." And it's just like I feel bad. Like I said, I feel a little bad, getting a little overwhelmed, because there's like I've got like such a backlog going on right now while I'm also dealing with school and work and everything. But it hasn't gotten to that part where it feels like work. And to me, that's the most important thing. Is just like when a hobby feels like work, then it kind of loses its appeal in a way. And like I don't see it that way, and I hope I never see it that way, because honestly, it's just like I love discovering new bands and acts. I love sitting down and listening to the music. I love writing about it, and it's just a really great feeling to like finally have a project that I feel like I can sink my teeth into. So yeah.
It's like a juicy watermelon that you just kind of say, you know what, screw this, and go bonsai on that motherfucker.
I feel like I should like tell the story, not that it's much of a story, about how I came up with that name.
I would love to hear
It is kind of the elephant in the room. Like
Yes.
it's not like this is, Travi's website for reviewing synthwave music. Yay. It's, okay, why? Why?
Right. All right. Well, perchance you know of the movie The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai?
I do.
It's been
It's been a
forever
while,
since I've seen
but
it, but
yeah.
Yeah. Well, there is this throwaway scene where they're going through the Banzai Institute, and there's a watermelon just stuck in like a mechanical vise. And one of the characters just offhand says to another character, "What is that watermelon doing there?" And the other character just sort of waves him off and says, "I'll tell you later." But he never tells him later. It's just a throwaway scene. And supposedly the story behind it in real life is that the director wasn't sure if the studio was even still paying attention to what they were doing, because the movie's so out there that the studio didn't know what to make of it. So they started to like make suggestions, being like, "Oh, you should change this, you should change that." And so the director wanted to make sure the studio was still paying attention, because he hadn't like heard from them in a while, and they shot that scene as a joke to see if the studio would say anything about it. but they never did. So the director took that as saying, okay, studio's no longer paying attention to what we're doing, so we'll just keep doing what we want to do. And they actually left it in the movie, which was also kind of funny.
That's great.
So the reason I use that as the name for the site is just because like Buckaroo Banzai is one of my favorite movies of all time, and it's obvious, it's a 80s cult classic, and I just always remembered that scene as being just this throwaway scene that didn't really seem to make sense at the time, and it doesn't really make sense now, but it's something that people always wondered, what is that watermelon doing there? And I guess in a way I kind of want people to think the same thing about my blog, like, what is this blog all about?
Hey, and maybe the internet gods will forget about you and you hang around and become part of a cult classic.
That'd be great.
I wanted to say, well, earlier when we were talking about like the retro sort of aesthetic and the kind of resurgence that synthwave and sort of 80s culture has gotten, one of the things that I've noticed recently has been sort of this ramping. It's not gone anywhere. Like the aesthetic is sort of has like gone away. It's like on a yearly or 2-year cycle, because you had things like Kung Fury, which was definitely in that vein. And then you had last year before, Stranger Things come out, which was definitely an homage to that time and super great, and had one of the best like synth tunes in recent memory with its theme song. And now you have Thor Ragnarok. If you've seen the promotion materials, I have not seen the trailer, but the promotion materials are definitely going for a more colorful, out there aesthetic.
Much like Guardians.
Yeah, exactly. And even more so than Guardians. Like, the Guardians of the Galaxy logo doesn't look like your logo. Whereas I looked at the Thor Ragnarok logo and was like, hey, that kind of reminds me of Watermelon Banzai's logo.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't know what it is. Like, they sometimes say that, like, decades are, like, sort of on this cycle. Like, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, you had that 70s show, it's just like, and that failed, that 80s show.
I was just looking at that. I did not know that fucking Dennis from Always Sunny was in that.
Really?
Yeah, he was the main character.
I didn't know that.
I was looking at it because I was like, who was in that goddamn show? Because I remember the promos, but I don't remember actually watching it. It was one of those where, like, I was watching other stuff on Fox, probably The Simpsons, but like, I was never a huge fan of that 70s show, but it seemed like this logical progression. It's like, oh, well, of course there's going to be that 80s show. And then it was around for apparently 13 episodes and then got canceled.
Yeah, no, it didn't really do too well. I mean, I do vividly remember tuning in for, I think, the first 3 or so episodes, because I did like that 70s show. But it's like again, it's just one of those things where just like sometimes I feel like decades and their whole like aesthetics and culture sort of roll back around every 20 or so years, like after the fact. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, maybe it just has to do with the fact that, the people who lived or were kids during that time are now adults. So
adults with money.
Exactly. Like all the 90s kids who now are adults and have disposable income, and Nickelodeon's like, hey, let's bring back all those shows they loved.
Hey, you liked, it's like even more recent stuff, like Samurai Jack. They brought back fucking Samurai Jack, and it's fantastic.
Yeah. Which,
I still have to see it. Don't spoil anything.
I've only seen the first episode, and it was fantastic. That's all I'll say.
I know. That's it. That's all I've seen, and I want to see more, but oh god, just put it in the bin with all of the other stuff that keeps coming out that I haven't had a chance to watch.
Same.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome back, Jack.
Hey, look who's back. Yay.
What did
Yeah.
you do?
So I feel like those like shaming signs where like a pet has to hold a sign that says "I peed on the rug."
Oh
or
no,
a
no, I
husband
know where this
has
is
to
going
hold a
because
sign
Obo
that
called it
says-
out as soon as it
or-
happened.
Or like a husband holds a sign that says "I ate the last bonbon." Well, I don't have any paper on me now, but if I did, I would hold up a sign that said "I forgot to plug my laptop in." And the worst thing is, it doesn't even warn you when you're on script. Usually there's a pop-up that tells you, "Oh, 5% power." Nope, my laptop just shuts down. No problem. It's fine.
As
Yes,
soon
that's-
as you disconnected, Lauren called you out on the show.
I did.
Wow. Well, okay.
I did.
That's okay. You can just put
I
me
have
in the
no
same.
shame.
You can just put me in the same jail you put your dice that don't give you the outcome you want. It's a dice
Yeah, but I
shaming,
don't- That
host
I don't.
shaming.
Yeah, I was about to
Dude.
say Obo doesn't do that. I do that.
No, I am the antithesis of a D&D player in that I have literally used. Luke bought me this set of metal dice at PAX 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and I just use it for everything. With some exceptions, but only when it's necessary for me to not use that set of dice. Like, oh, I'm gonna play this one shot for charity and give the dice away. Well, guess what? I'm not using my dice. But yeah, because it's random probability and chance, and as long as they are well balanced dice, which they are, it just happens. And I'm not gonna put these dice in jail because these are really nice dice.
So you say that. I actually, and I've been called a lunatic for this sort of notion, but you know what? I don't care. Having studied probability in the realm of physics, and especially like quantum physics, like I am the firm believer in that if a dice, it actually, this is how the opposite of what I should think. I should be willing to use a dice that is rolled badly because it's not as likely to roll badly again. But I don't do that. I just assume I have like the hot hand fallacy, except it's the cold dice fallacy, where it's like a die has failed me and it's going to continue to fail me until for as long as it can, which is a ridiculous notion. It's totally
got
illogical.
Some bad juju on it.
As
Bad
illogical
juju
as
dice.
that is, your philosophy in the Dungeons and Dragons community is kind of the accepted philosophy. I mean, that's what most people do. Most people are just like, this is bad dice. You should get rid of that. You should give it away. You should, Will Wheaton has a whole big thing about how he curses dice that he touches. And while that may be emotional or that may not necessarily be scientific, that's kind of the accepted thing. And so when I tell people, no, I just use the same dice for everything, I've had people be aghast that I would use the same dice as a player that I do as a DM.
Ooh.
You're going to kill us with the same dice that you played with? Okay, first off, no. Second off, no. Hi, caller. You need to turn off your radio.
I was trying to get into the chat, but it looks like the thing's streaming right now on Twitch, so I don't know how to mute the thing once it's playing. It didn't give me an option to pause it.
You can just mute the tab.
You just mute it. Yeah.
Well, it's not a tab. It's my mobile device.
You can also mute the audio. But anyway,
tried that. Didn't work. I'll just turn the volume all the way down.
That's all right. I will eventually get to the point in where I have money. Maybe. Who knows? And one of the other reasons that I don't ever want to not use these dice is because they are metal dice and they feel so good.
So before
I just can't go back to plastic.
So before we get too off track, one of the reasons why it occurred to me to have Travi on is because we had a little bit of a conversation about Dungeons and Dragons on Twitter.
Yes.
And
yes.
I was like, I wonder if Travi is going to have any more questions, because I know of a format where he can get access to resources like Dungeons and Dragons and Drunks Dungeon Master or Lauren Obo Crazy Urban and Jonathan the Magic Muscular, and also Travancore, I guess.
I guess.
who I always assumed he as a tribute to one of his greatest friends.
I did too.
And then when he told me, well, that's not really what it's from, I was just like,
we're not
longer friends.
Crushed. I can understand that. Oh my god. So So Travancore is a monster, canon confirmed. So anyway, is there so Travi, is there anything else you wanted to talk about D&D? I know we had talked about evil characters and evil characters in games. It's funny. I've been talking a lot of character design theory with friend of the show Izzy, and one of the things we come up with is a sort of a character archetype that is evil, definitely evil, but can also work in just about any campaign setting, and that is like Obo kind of mentioned the lawful evil type. But one thing that we were thinking is like, James Bond has no empathy for people. Like that's one of the things that makes him a good 00. That's a James Bond thing. That's not just a Daniel Craig thing. A lack of empathy is evil.
Yeah.
And
It
so
can be.
James Bond could be described as a lawful evil character. Like he does what he does for king and country because that's what he believes, but at the same time he is willing to do anything. Kill, maim, torture, romance, whatever, and he doesn't care about any of those people. So it's like James Bond could be a lawful evil character, and when we were talking about it, we're like, that would actually be a great character archetype to play. You could even put him in an organization like Lord's Alliance that is ostensibly good, but he can be their dirty laundry guy.
I might even argue that he's not lawful evil. I would argue that he's chaotic neutral. Because everything that you've just described, he is willing to do pretty much anything in order to get the job done.
But for an ideal. For an ideal. And he sticks by that ideal loyally no matter what.
Yeah, but I think that's a...
And if you're chaotic, that sort of means that you're all about personal freedoms. You get to do what you want. And I see what you're going with for that, because he definitely believes that. But I think if you frame it in terms of he is doing whatever he feels is necessary for this cause, for his job, for his country and his monarchy, then that's lawful.
Maybe. I'm not going to totally disagree, but I've one more argument for why he might not be totally lawful, and that's everything you've just described is completely true, and also why he works alone. And you could not have a D&D group of 5 James Bonds, because they would just try to sacrifice each other in order to get the job done. And as we talked about on Twitter, in order for an evil campaign, in my view, to work, you need the party needs to be cohesive in the same way a traditional good party would be, in where the characters care enough about their fellow player, the characters care enough about the other people in the party to not be willing to kick them to the curb at a moment's notice. Right,
but I think that in the realm of James Bond lawfulness, he would view his team as part of the deal. Like, hey, I need to do this because it is what needs to be done. Also, my team is important for that. I think for James Bonds, I think you're right. I think for 5 James Bonds, you couldn't have them working together. But you could have a team of lawful evil characters that are kind of working to the same goal, or a lawful evil character that it believes enough in a team to do that. And I think even if you had straight up James Bond, he could also work well in just a normal party, because one of the things you would establish right away is that he is all about the party. And I think that is important just as a general rule to establish, because otherwise, like you said, it's just everybody for himself. You need that baseline. We are working together. Otherwise, why are you doing this?
It's essentially the difference between Richard Dean Anderson's MacGyver and Lucas Till's MacGyver. Lucas Till is strictly in a team environment, whereas RDA is kind of a lone wolf.
I don't know who that second person is.
You've never seen the new MacGyver, huh?
Nope.
Okay, so do you watch the for X-Men First Class?
Yes.
Havoc. The guy Lucas Till played Havoc.
Who?
Havoc. Oh, very funny. The Vietnam vet from what do you call it? Days of Future Past.
Oh,
Fun guy.
that's a reference I'm least likely to get. I hated Days of Future Past.
Wow.
Wow, we've gone down a weird rabbit hole.
But anyway, okay. I think I know who you're talking about because I think he was in Apocalypse as well, which also sucked.
Yeah, let's throw it to Travi Tiebreaker. What do you think?
Well, I was gonna say that depends on which James Bond you're talking about, because I feel like they've all brought a different, like I think the Sean Connery James Bonds, he tended to play nicer with other people. Like, how many of the movies that he did involved him leading a strike team into a large scale operation? Or, I felt like a lot of the recent movies with
Daniel Craig.
Yeah, he did a lot of things by himself, and in more than one of the movies he basically disregarded the rules. Like, it got kind of silly the number of times they could be like, all right, your M16 has disavowed you and everything, you're no longer working for Queen and Country. Well, I'm still gonna do it anyways.
I mean, he didn't actually give anyone a stone cold stunner, but you could tell he wanted to.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you could.
I think that's a good point. I think it does depend on the James Bond, because I think you have like Roger Moore Bond. I think is probably the most team oriented Bond, and then you have like Timothy Dalton and Daniel Craig, who are definitely maybe more neutral because of their disregard for their deal. And it's actually it's funny because like I'm playing a lawful neutral character in a different campaign. And one of the things that I established very early on with her is that what makes her lawful is the ideal that she holds. Just because she's in Podunkville, backwater town, doesn't mean she's going to follow all of Podunkville's laws and be like, nope, I am lawful, so I must do what the magistrate says. No, that's not what she's going to do at all. Her ideal is very different. So it's like, it would depend on the situation if she's going to give a crap about what the magistrate has to say.
Yeah, and to sort of bring my experiences to the table, I'm in a weekly campaign where I'm playing also a lawful neutral character. He's a paladin, a former judge turned paladin, and his god is one of balance. So, like, he feels he needs to, make sure that people are, sort of innocent till proven guilty, and sort of keep that balance of law and order. And if they are, in fact, evil or, bad, then he has also no problem playing judge, jury, and, if needed, executioner.
Mm-hmm. That's a paladin.
Yeah, so it's been really fun because there are people in my party who don't see things that way. So sometimes the paladin has to, try to make sure they don't kill someone when he feels they shouldn't be killed, especially if we need to learn information. So the only reason I brought this up on Twitter was because we've been playing this campaign weekly we just passed our 1 year mark.
Nice.
Yeah.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. The DM who's running it is doing a really good job. He's actually following he's sort of following a pre-made module, but he's like altered a lot of it to his own liking.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. So he he says it's almost getting near its end, but there's still plenty to do. But like, he just brought up the idea of like, okay, what do you want to do next once this is done? And the idea that was brought up was like, well, we've all always played like really good characters. Like, I've played this paladin, which is the longest I've ever played a character before, like a whole year's worth of games. Like, we're up to level 11, and like I've played a chaotic neutral rogue. I've played like a your stereotypical brain dead fighter who is just like you know I guess neutral. He doesn't really know good or bad. Just give me something to hit type of person. Um, so the appeal of running like a campaign that's just like evil, quote unquote, kind of interested us as a group because we've always, I think most people who play D&D play at least somewhat good aligned characters that have a common goal and something worthy to fight for. So the idea to just sort of like flip it on its head and try something different really sort of intrigued us. And especially for a DM as well, it intrigued him. And he's already like started to think of scenarios and whatnot. And it was just, and as Jonathan said, it was just something that I just put out on Twitter. And it amazed me how many people like responded to me and like started conversations. And it was awesome to just talk D&D with people. And I know that Jonathan, as he said on Twitter, he had a lot to say, but only so much you can say in 140 characters.
Yeah, and again, that was kind of a selfish reason to get you on, because damn it, I have things to say about evil characters. I have not actually played, and I take that back. I had a wizard who became evil, and that was just to, because I know people love hearing about old characters. He was a high elf wizard, so he was one of the only 3/5 races that got a +2 int. And so I munchkined the hell out of that character. All his saves were really high. He had tons of spells. And then he got killed. So at that point, the only thing that we could do for him was a reincarnation. So he had been a high elf, and he got reincarnated into a halfling. Mechanically, he was way better. At that point, like small size gave him plus to AC. He got plus to hit, so all his ranged touch attack spells were even better. And he was he was a better wizard, and he got to keep all his mental stats. Fun fact, high elves live almost indefinitely in 3/5. Like, I think they have like a max age, but I honestly don't remember what it was. It was like somewhere on the level of 1,000 to 2,000 years. Halflings live for 150 years.
I see where this is going.
Was not happy. So as the campaign progressed, he started caring less and less about other people and more about his goals, gaining power to try and either fix himself or make it so that he doesn't die, kind of like put stuff off. So there was one fight where we were going in with a group of city guards to rescue some prisoners. He fireballed and then accidentally hit some of the prisoners and killed them. At the end of the fight, the main city guard draws down on him and says, "You will answer for the lives you've taken." And he blinded her.
Like forever?
It would make a much better story if it was forever, but no, it was just the spell blindness. So he blinded her and managed to bluff that he had tons of spells left when he didn't. So he was not a nice person by the end of that campaign. So he's probably the closest I've gotten to evil. But I thought that was more interesting because he still was goal-oriented. Like, he knew he couldn't do what he needed to do without these jerks around him. But at the same time, he became less interested in preserving innocent lives.
Yeah.
Now I ran an evil campaign.
Yes, and that's why I really wanted to pick your brain, because I've only personally DM'd a handful of games. So I'm just like very curious to see how that went about.
Well, I'll say this. The evil campaign that I ran was one of the first full campaigns I ever ran. Up until that point, I had mostly run one-shots or very short things, at least for my home group. The fact that I ran it was due to we were getting close to my home game is a group of us have been playing together since I moved out here in 2010, and we rotate who's DMing on a regular basis to keep from getting burnt out. And so as the person who was currently DMing, they had indicated, we're getting close to the end of this campaign. I would like to take a break if someone else wants to pick this up. And around the same time, we have a member of our group who likes to run chaotic characters to their fullest extent. Not necessarily evil, but they're chaotic and a little crazy. And he had done, I don't even remember what he did, but he did something that made us all joke about, well, we're all going evil after this. And so when my friend had said, I'd like to stop after the end of this and go back to playing if someone else wants to DM, one of the friends looked at me and said, so you're going to run that evil campaign we talked about? Ironically enough, of all of the campaigns I have run, with Dungeons and Dragons and Drunks probably being the only exception, as far as a self-contained beginning, middle, and end with a heroic, in quotes, conclusion for the party, as far as the players in the party were concerned, they won. And we went for 10, 11 months. It was almost a year, a little less than a year. I created, it was a custom little world. I created a custom goddess that they were all worshippers of. It, in a weird way, it was actually my most successful campaign. And I mean, I've run a whole bunch of stuff since then, and certainly Dungeon Drunks have gone a lot longer. The more I think about it, the reason it was successful had actually very little to do with that it was evil or it was a homebrew world or any of the trappings. I knew ahead of time that one of the biggest pitfalls, as I talked about on Twitter, is evil, especially in Dungeons and Dragons, evil has the connotation of maniacal or world ending or mad scientist, or it's the extreme of evil. It is the destruction, death, crazy evil. And so a lot of the time when when bad players, not you guys, play evil characters, it's either to be that maniacal or it's to be a dick, really, which, it's just of course I'm not being a dick, my character is evil, so of course he would backstab you, which is never fun for anybody. So it's like, okay, how do I make these characters not do that? Because that's the, I was doing a lot of research, and it was, evil campaigns can't work because 5 games in, my rogue figured out that, I might as well just backstab the guy in the middle of the night while I'm on night watch, and then I get all of his stuff, and I didn't want that to happen. So we put a lot of effort pre-game into character backstory and character melding as far as relationships go. I gave my players, I'm like, okay, you can pick any race, you can pick any class, you can, and this was back in 4th edition when saying any race and any class was like there were millions of options.
Yeah.
I'm like, you can be anywhere on the spectrum except for chaotic evil. I didn't want crazy evil. And I said the only requirements are you are all they were all worshippers of this deity, and you need to come up with a relationship amongst yourselves. Because this isn't your meeting in a tavern and going off adventuring for the first time. Your goddess is sending you guys on a mission because you're Strike Team Delta. And yeah, you're starting at level 1, but you're Strike Team Delta. Don't
Charlie and Bravo are out there taking care of the shit you can't take care of.
Exactly. And so I think with the if any DM, if you take that work ahead of time, and by work I mean it was a couple of emails and 1 session of character creation. It really wasn't a lot of time, but it put into the mindset of these people are important to my character, and the importance ranged. Some of the characters were brothers and sisters, some of the characters were lifelong friends, some of the characters were indebted to each other, some of the characters just had a super professional relationship, and so there was no it the amount of feeling behind a lot of the relationships varied, but it was all rooted in I'm not just going to leave you to die by the side of the road. And so that character thing that we were talking about, and I think any party that does that, good, bad, indifferent, I think you're going to end up with a more cohesive starting group, and that's probably why that game worked so well. The other thing that I hammered home, and I made sure, which I haven't talked about on Twitter, is that idea of these evil is much more interesting when they don't view themselves as evil.
Yeah.
I'm not evil. I'm the hero of this story.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think yes, my morals might be a little questionable. I might be like some of the more crazy James Bonds who are willing to just kill, maim, and destroy for my own ends. But I believe what I'm doing is the right thing to do or the best thing to do. In my home games case, they were all, as I said, they worshipped this goddess who was lawful evil, who wanted to take over the world not because of, but she, like a lot of misguided leaders, thought, if I'm just in charge, if I'm in charge, everything will work out. She was literally the goddess of outcasts. That was her purview. And so one of her tenets was you do not discriminate against people, because she was actually a very tolerant goddess in a lot of ways. It does not matter your sex, your race, who you love, where, whatever, but you will not discriminate against other people or I'll just kill you, because everyone needs to worship me. So they were on a holy crusade. From their point of view, these characters they were sent on a task to retrieve an object that was going to further their goddess's goals. And in all these characters' minds, they were doing this for the betterment of the world. Now, they might have been a little more willing to kill, maim, and destroy, but they were also allowed to be intelligent about that. They didn't just walk into town and kill, maim, and destroy. They were subversive. They were they
Another
made
good example
friends.
is the operative from Serenity.
Yeah.
And the thing is, he is one of those interesting, because I do agree, you want to talk about action movies. Francis X. Hummel from The Rock is one of the most interesting villains because of that very notion. He does not believe he is doing evil. He knows he's doing something bad, but it is for greater good. And the operative is even more self-aware. He recognizes that what he does is vile and despicable, but he does it so that the world can be safe. And he acknowledges, I would never be welcome in the society I am trying to protect. But that's fine. That is my sacrifice. And that also speaks to a character's arrogance. He is like, oh, I'm just so self-sacrificing that I will not live in the world that I'm helping to create. But even though it's better, I can't live there because I'm a monster.
Yeah. And actually, it's sort of one of the ideas that we've been sort of kicking around for this evil campaign. And without going too much into the whole story of the current campaign, it's basically a race against time where the party is trying to stop this cult who's trying to collect all these artifacts to raise a Lich Queen who is prophesized to sort of cleanse the world and, bring order and everything.
Sure.
So we one of the ideas we had for the evil campaign is what if we flipped it where we replayed the campaign more or less from the cult side, where we started off as low-level cultists in the same cult, in the same world and campaign, and we're trying to fight and get all these artifacts to raise this Lich Queen.
That's almost like a Rashomon kind of D&D event, like where you
Yeah.
get the same story from multiple points of view.
Yeah.
I like
because,
that idea.
I mean, not everyone who are the minions of someone who is evil, they they can't they can't all be insane. Like,
Right.
people have self-preservation, and if raising Lich Queen means everyone dies, the vast majority of people are sane enough to go, that doesn't sound good. No. So they must honestly and wholeheartedly believe her being raised is gonna do good things, not just for maybe just for them or maybe for everybody, but it can't mean death and destruction for them personally, because only the insane are going to want to do that. So yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Well, I would at least assume that they would like be under the belief for like, well, we're doing this to help her. We're her followers. Surely we'll be saved.
I would even go so far as to say it might not even be a surely will be saved.
Yeah.
It might be she could be crazy, chaotic evil and has lied to everybody and said, yes, those who help me, I will. I promise. I swear I will blah, 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 blah. And then, turns out that she was a dirty, dirty liar. But yeah, the people under her, the only reason I think sane people, even if they're evil, do evil things is because they feel like they are honestly going to get the reward they've been promised or think that they're going to get. So, whatever that reward might be.
Yeah.
I think
so. That's one of the things we're sort of kicking around. Like I mentioned on Twitter, we also threw around ideas like a band of mercenaries who come together and do the dirty work for royalty that they don't want to do. I don't know. It's interesting just trying
that one
to...
I really like, because then you don't have to go evil. You could go, say, a neutral party.
Yeah, pragmatic kind of
yeah.
It's like the Caddyshack of D&D campaigns.
How is that the Caddyshack of D&D campaigns?
Because the people working like as caddies or whatever were working for rich people they didn't like.
Okay, that I could actually sort of make sense. Sort of.
Yeah, like the reason the mercenary thing, I like that because I like that. I think it allows a little more. You don't have to all be evil. You can be some neutral. Heck, you could even have some good in there. You could have some chaotic good in there that can justify their actions depending on what's going on. And then from job to job, it can vary how evil shit gets, because that was the other reason that my campaign ended, is because it, like, that kind of thing, it's a weird way to play for too long. You end up in these weird situations and where all of a sudden the smart thing is not necessarily the totally evil thing, but then you're like, am I truly playing my character if I'm being smart about this? And like I actually got to ask a question at PAX they used to do a Ask a DM panel, and it was Perkins and Mike Merles and basically a whole bunch of Wizards of the Coast people. And I was running my evil campaign, and I got to ask them, I'm like, I'm having a problem in where some of the more bloodthirsty members of my party want to do the bloodthirsty kill, maim, and destroy, but they're smart enough to know that that's a bad idea all the time. And now they're getting antsy because they're doing all the smart evil things when they want to kind of let loose every once in a while. I literally put a puppy in front of them, and they didn't kill the puppy because it made more sense to not kill the puppy from an evil standpoint. How do I satisfy the bloodlust of the fighter without making it seem stupid?
Dear Wizards of the Coast, help me kill this puppy.
And if you look that up, I want to say it's from PAX 4 or 5 years ago. Oh, it's from PAX. It would be PAX Prime now, but it was just PAX at the time. And yeah, that was the question that I asked. I had to tell all my players, I'm like, you're not allowed to watch the videos on demand somewhere. I'm like, you're not allowed to watch that, because I got some really good answers that turned into things that I did in game. So it gets weird. And so, yeah, that would be my last suggestion. If you're going to go full on evil, let your DM have an end point. And then, or maybe do the mercenary thing, so that way it can, you can kind of be chaotic A team, you know? And so
Yeah.
sometimes you can do good things for selfish reasons, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And I figure with the mercenary aspect, like, you know, it leaves itself open to sort of being a one-shot campaign that you return to every now and then, because every job that the mercenaries go on could be a one-shot sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you get tired of, you know, if you want to take a break from a, you know, the usual good aligned campaign, you can be like, all right, let's do a quick little one-shot of this mercenary group sort of thing.
Tales of the Yawning Portal just came out, and that's got a whole bunch of really good one-shot-ish dungeon things, and you know, especially in Faerun and the Forgotten Realms, one of the easiest things to do for a mercenary group would be, hey, listen, I went down with my adventuring group into this dungeon, and a whole bunch of us died, and I had to vamoose, and there's a magic item down there that I want back. Go into that dungeon and get that thing back for me. I will pay you a butt ton of gold.
Mhm.
Metric system.
Yes.
The butt ton being a
butt
measure
ton
in
is
SI.
equal. It's equal to at least 2 butt tons of silver, but only maybe a fourth of a butt ton of platinum.
Wow, I've had a butt ton of fun so far. Oh man, so Trevi, where can we find you on the social medias?
Oh boy, I've got so many these days. I've got like 4 Twitter accounts, but only 2 of them really matter in this conversation. On Twitter, there's my personal account at Return of the Yak, and then for Watermelon Banzai, which you can find at watermelonbanzai.com, my Twitter account, because it wouldn't fit in all one characters, it's WTRMLN Banzai. And I also got a Watermelon Bonsai page on Facebook that people can also check out.
Cool. I mean, I can't believe it took us this long, like, to have you back on the Glib Shark. Hopefully, it doesn't take this long until the next time you're back.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's like I'm still in school. I've actually got commencement coming up,
Congratulations!
Yay!
May 19th. It'll be live streamed, so in case any of my friends want to watch my 3 seconds of fame as I walk across the
It's
the
not
stage.
even enough time for a 5-second pose.
No, although technically I don't graduate till August because I have to take 2 summer courses to officially finish.
No big deal. You earned it. You're most of the way there, so you get to walk, and then you get your piece of paper after August, which is actually
Yeah.
when I graduated college. So that's a good time to finish up.
Yeah, so hopefully once I get school done and all I have to worry about is a full-time job,
Meh.
yeah, I'll have time to focus more on creative projects, and who knows, maybe
Can I
I'll
be old and crotchety for a second here? I know we're winding down.
yeah.
Go for it.
As also a creative person who has gone to many schoolings and is old, I'm gonna say this: you're never gonna have time.
No,
Make
I
the
know.
time.
Yeah.
It's hey, as soon as I
Yeah.
is never gonna happen. Just kick yourself in the butt and get rid of something that is not helpful and do it, because you will never have the time.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about this recently, and I know I'm the youngest one in the room, but like I'll be turning 31 this year, and I was thinking to myself, I have been in school nonstop all my life basically, and I am so done. I just can't wait to be done. But no, I know what you're saying, and I do tend to use sort of negative language in that sense, but
Well, and I know you're only half thinking that, because I mean, you
Right.
went ahead and did
Yeah.
the watermelon bonsai thing, so it's not like you
Right.
are just waiting around. You are doing shit.
Yeah.
oh yeah, and I do have some more creative endeavors in the future that are simmering in the background.
Serial
s-
podcast.
I was gonna have cereal on tonight, but it was too close to dinner, and and apparently I was the only one who would have brought cereal.
We'll take that offline.
That's just one of the many projects I have ideas for. But anyways, I agree. It's been too long since I've been on, and I've been friends with you guys for a number of years now, so I appreciate being on, and I hope to be back on sooner than later.
Well, and to that end, actually, while we're promoting all the social medias, you can find me at Jack Edithil, Roadblock at Road_block, Oboe Crazy at Oboe Crazy, and us at Glib Shark, or Dungeon at Dungeon Drunks. And I have a little bit of news. So I had a little bit of free time after my self-imposed social media exile. I found myself participating in a lot of groups for podcasts I like on Facebook, just Facebook groups, largely private. The admin has to let you in or whatever. And I've been exploring the possibility of creating this kind of group for Glib Shark and D&D, and I've done that. So I'm going to post something onto our Facebook page for Glib Shark tomorrow. So if you're interested in joining this group, all you have to do is just, like that page, and we'll invite you to our super secret club for Glib Shark and D&D enthusiasts.
I actually meant to bring that up privately, but we'll bring it up in front of everyone. So because what the hey, I was wondering what certain people were doing in that group, because initially it was just like the production team, as it were, and then I saw people who weren't that in the group, and I'm like, what are they doing here? And I kept meaning to send a message about it, but I never got around to it because
now you know.
And now I know.
When you're part of a company that does its meetings as its podcasts.
The following was a Glib Shark board
PSA.
meeting, I guess.
Yeah,
behind the curtain.
So until next week, on behalf hold on a second. I didn't identify our sound producer, who's Jonathan Chaotic Neutral Cerna.
I don't actually think I fall into Chaotic Neutral IRL. I think I tend toward a good and maybe a lawful, probably a neutral good, I would say.
That's probably about right, but Chaotic Neutral has a nicer ring to it.
An inaccurate ring.
Accurate schmaccurate. So you spent a perfectly good hour and some change listening to Glib Shark. We hope you join us again next week. So on behalf of Travie, Lauren Urban, and Jonathan Cerna, this is Jack Edithil saying good night, good health, and lyrics to a 90s song that you can imagine me singing, but I'm not actually going to sing right now. And there we go.
I love how we all immediately started bopping our head to the lyrics to a song that none of us could hear.
What's funny is that the song that I thought of wasn't actually a 90s song. It was Third Eye Blind's Jumper.
Oh,
not 90s.
You would step up from that ledge, my friend.
Right, but not 90s. Like the other song that immediately popped into my head.
I thought it was like 99.
Was it?
Or was that 2000?
I think that was 2000. But the other song that popped into my head was Tal Bachman's She's So High, which is most fucking definitely 90s.
Oh, man. Like I had a song actually ready to go for this week, and I just blanked out on what it was, and I just figured I would just let you choose your own song, like a choose your own adventure book.
I think the band...
Okay, I was wrong. That was Jumper was 97.
Oh.
There you go.
I was thinking of Where Do You Go by No Mercy.
Was that the one that goes... How does that go?
Where do you go, my lovely...
Oh, yes, that's the one I thought it was.
Yeah.
I think there was that song by... Well, not Crash Test Dummies, but like the one... Like standing outside of a broken phone machine with change in my hand.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
For all the days...
That is one of the most pretentious song titles and lyrics ever. It's like...
But they've been downhearted!
I loved that song. I really did. But yeah, horrible, like total pretentious milady kind of name.
Yeah.
I've been downhearted, baby. I've been downhearted.
But I love the song. I love the song. All right, streamers, thank you so much for joining us. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye. Yeah, and I'm going to go